Thank you. Welcome to the Asset Performance Management panel. Today with me is a select panel of industry veterans. So I will start with asking our panelists to briefly just introduce themselves. Start with alphabetical order. Karthick, starting with you.
Thanks, Cetin. Hi guys, my name is Karthick Srinivasan. I lead the digital transformation for Delek US and in the business transformation team for the enterprise, looking after the midstream, downstream, and on the retail end. Been in the energy industry for almost 2 decades now, focused on oil and gas and a little bit on the nuclear and on the power industry.
Mark.
Good morning. Happy to be on the panel and to participate in this conference. My name is Mark Fonda. I'm the CTO of Meridian Energy Group based in Houston, Texas. We're an independent owner-operator who is designing and building a series of grassroots refineries in the United States, which are small and decentralized, utilizing shale oil as a feedstock. My background is in downstream, working on staff for a number of refiners, including Mobil, Ultramar, Hess, and Sunoco. My positions ranged from process engineering to operations to project development and then plant management. Meridian's refineries will utilize best available technology in the process, environmental, and digital areas to provide the cleanest, safest, and smartest refineries ever built. There are significant reductions in energy and operating expenses, improved equipment reliability and utilization, and ultimately huge reductions in pollutant emissions and greenhouse gas emissions. Digital technology will be implemented to the greatest extent possible, which we believe will not only keep us in compliance, but will give us a competitive advantage in efficiency and flexibility. Thank you.
Philip.
Hello, my name is Philip Black. I'm the Global Emerging Solutions Lead for Wood, Digital and Technology. My focus at Wood is on the application of blockchain, IoT, and machine learning for both our clients and for our internal processes as well. I'm a chemical engineer, and I've worked in a variety of roles within the oil and gas industry, including real-time asset monitoring systems, software development, and product management. I've seen a lot of good changes in oil and gas in how equipment is monitored. When I started in the early 2000s, we were trying to monitor equipment in real time using giant if, then, else statements and convoluted logic trees. It's gotten so much easier with the new technologies that have been developed. I think the increased contextualization of information and connectivity between systems, which many people are calling digital twins, really enhances the usefulness of all the information we've been collecting for a long time, but not really doing much with. Thank you.
Okay. Russell?
Hello everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Russell Herbert. I'm one of the industry principals for OSIsoft. If you don't know OSIsoft, we are a software company based out of California, and we make a piece of software called the Pi system, which is pretty dominant in the world of real-time data collection, data management, this kind of stuff. So really looking forward to this discussion. Thanks for the invite, and hopefully it's going to be good. So thanks everyone.
All right, with me, Cetin Karakus. I run the Quantitative Analytical Solutions at BP. My background is in financial engineering of derivative instruments, but I have been involved in the planning and optimization system of physical in the physical asset management space, where optimal management of the physical assets such as refineries and pipelines and marine vessels play a key role. So I have a bit of a relationship to this space. So I will start to jump into the first topic, which is how can we measure the return on investment when it comes to introducing new automation technologies. So I will start with you, Karthick. So you've been involved in the M&A activities. So what kind of metrics, systems, or practices do you come across when you're doing your due diligence with these companies, and how did that affect your decision making when it comes to the M&A decision making process?
Thanks, Cetin, for the question. So during the due diligence process, when we actually look into the return of investment and the IRR metrics, which is pretty common in the M&A space, few key considerations come into play. One is, what is the return of the asset and the capacity transactions? What kind of a unit integration are we looking at, and the overall profit margin? And I could keep listing those due diligence vectors or the characteristics we look for, but everything comes to a fundamental of, okay, what is the individual asset's value and how much it has depreciated, and at the most important part is what is the integrity of the equipment. So in other words, we actually look at the maintenance records, so the asset performance management 2, where it brings in the maintenance records, the integrity of the assets, and the data of overall piece where your process data, your integrity data, and your system level data gets integrated into the space. So that's a key metric. At the end of the day, we usually use the terminology return of assets to evaluate what as you look into the EBIT or the EBITDA, depending on your valuation metrics. We have to look into all these flavors of the equation, but to make sure we have a robust business case, and we evaluate the individual asset of a particular site or the area you're looking at.
Excellent. Mark, what kind of metrics or criteria do you look into when you decide to introduce new automation technology into your technology estates? I mean, do you have a framework you follow, or certain analysis, such as like looking at the payback period when you make a decision?
Yes, of course. As I previously mentioned, we plan to utilize the whole array of digital technologies to enhance the entire refinery project, from design to construction to startup and then ongoing operations, and eventually with asset management to improve reliability and equipment utilization and minimize unplanned maintenance expense. Most of this is just utilizing the current best available technology, starting from the ground up with field instrumentation that is intelligent and working up through effective data management and analysis, and then using digital twins and artificial intelligence to pinpoint opportunities for troubleshooting and optimization. Our selection criteria is to utilize best available and proven technology with a track record and history of performance backed by a vendor guarantee. We cannot deploy experimental technology due to the risk, and it's also a condition of our air permit to provide vendor guarantees on emissions performance. For us, technology is part of the project, but we think that the benefits are in the range of 1% to 3% of TIC annually, so that can be the basis of a budget if there is an incremental cost. My upcoming presentation will go into some detail on this. Thank you.
All right, let's continue with the theme of return on investment, but this time looking into the introduction of the new digital technologies. So, Philip, you're active in this space, working on cutting-edge technologies such as blockchain. So, what will be your methodology when you evaluate the returns of adopting such technologies, and what kind of process do you suggest to follow?
One of the reasons blockchain, or more generally speaking, distributed ledgers, is so challenging to talk about in terms of value creation is that it's a disruptive combination of existing technologies. It's effectively a fundamental reimagining of the trust relationship between businesses. I think the only real way any disruptive technologies can be valued is in the context of how it changes the complete business model. Blockchain is not a replacement for data storage and management. There's always going to be a need for traditional types of systems that do this. What it does do is change how digital information can be shared and monetized. It provides a mechanism to incentivize cooperation between groups who may not trust each other. Blockchain creates a natural motivation for all participants to do thorough quality assurance of all information before it gets published to the chain, resulting in higher quality data sets that everyone benefits from. This higher data quality means now financial transactions can be initiated in an automated fashion using smart contracts which results in more efficient and lower business cost processes. The challenge, and one of the reasons I think uptake of technology has been slow, is that to get this value, you have to completely rethink your business model. You have to really almost forget how you make money now and start over, thinking what you could do if you could completely rely on a protocol or platform for trust, and how the data your system generates could be monetized. This is one of the exciting areas I'm working on with our process technology licensing group, going through a fundamental reimagining of how our technology is licensed within the industry, given the new capabilities I just discussed related to blockchain. Thank you.
So does that mean that some of the traditional metric wouldn't be immediately useful? So you have to kind of come up with the new metrics.
Yes, I think the new metrics is what can you do differently? What can change in your business model? How can you create new types of contracts that both parties win? When both parties make money, or when the process makes more money, all parties share.
Okay, Russell, you're on the sort of sell side, selling these digital solutions. So what would be the methods you will use to evaluate, or what would be the method you will suggest your customers to evaluate the solution you are selling, to ensure that the kind of return on investment they're going to get from the purchasing your products?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think with a product like the Pi system that we sell at OSIsoft, it's kind of a bit more complicated, because we're selling a sort of a platform or an enterprise-wide capability rather than a particular solution. So I guess that with that comes sort of direct and indirect sort of benefits that all need to be considered, measured, reviewed, etc. So we have part of that is a general capability of managing data better. So, you first have to start thinking about, well, how do we measure the benefit of that in an organization? What are the value to many different areas, not just operations, but production, to maintenance, to finance, to health and safety. The value of measuring and using data better is broad across all those areas. So there's those kind of areas. The second area would be, what's the tangible benefit of specific features or functions that a customer may find in a tool like the Pi system? So in other words, if it enables me to build systems and solutions myself using that platform, how do I measure the value of them? So if I want to monitor a particular piece of equipment or a particular piece of process, or I want to create some sort of alert or some new way of observing what's going on across my operation, what's the value of that? How much time does it save? How much value does it inject? How much percentage improvement in production, or how many reduced safety events or equipment failures, etc. And then I think the third area we need to think about with our customers when, again, looking at the Pi system is, the indirect benefits of other systems and tools that are connected to the Pi system. So in other words, if I'm able to manage my data better, am I able to, integrate other tools more easily? Am I able to accelerate other technology programs that I'm trying to do? Can I make my advanced analytics better, more accurate, more successful? So evaluating a tool or a platform such as Pi is probably much more complicated than other tools. And we've seen customers adopt different strategies in all those areas. We've seen maturity assessments like we do ourselves in general capabilities within an organization. What was our organizational maturity around digital technology before implementing these kind of platforms? How's the platform help the organization move forward? We've seen lots of customers using our tools to monitor, tangible benefits, like I was talking about. How have they reduced failures in pieces of equipment? How much money have they saved? How many, what kind of improvements have they seen? And we have technology in the Pi system that allows them to do that. We have the ability to kind of spot operational events, and we can drive analytics against those events where they can configure the system to calculate things like the cost of these events or how much lost production and stuff like that. So we've had customers build quite sophisticated tools around that. And then in the third area, I think it's quantitative assessment of how is introducing this technology, when we compare technology projects before we've implemented tools like Pi against how we're doing it now that we have Pi. What's our value? How much quicker are we doing things? How much more successful? So it's not an easy answer, but we spend a lot of time working with customers around this kind of stuff. So
no, great. Thanks for a comprehensive answer. Now let's move into another topic, which is like when you look at it, the companies make huge investment in the physical assets, and it's very important that they kind of optimally manage such physical assets not for just bottom financial result, but also environmental and sustainability concerns. So I want to ask our panelists what kind of strategies that can be used to optimally manage or improve the asset performance. So I'll start with Karthick. So you've been involved with coming across a lot of companies during your M&A activities. So what kind of major differences do you see between companies in this regard, and how do you think the whole digitization process will affect the approach to the asset performance management? And then do you see have you come across what you can consider as kind of best practices in this regard?
Thanks, Cetin. That's actually a really good question. Let me start with an example, and so that everybody can relate to it, right? So the asset management, the optimal, there's no one story that's going to fit all. So in the optimal asset management space, the evolution is much similar to how we are buying our houses or our property, right? So the evolution in terms of how technology has influenced the market in the residential is pretty much the same in the commercial area, which is basically what we are looking at in the M&A space when we try to buy an asset. How and where we are heading towards, it's making its progress. It's not a drastic on and off change what you see in a technology industry like a cell phone or other area, but it has significantly changed. And I want to touch on a couple of points that Philip mentioned, because there's three main factors when we do the M&A space, and that is related to the asset performance management. And the first and the primary one is trust. Second one is the record of information, and then the third is, and that is natural for a human, is curiosity and instinct. So when anybody or the companies get access to the data room, when they see the information, the records of information, they want to make sure they trust that information. Then the natural tendency of curiosity actually gets lower. So they actually start looking at, okay, I'm comfortable with the data, then they start looking at it. If they see a record of information that they are not completely, it's not trustworthy, then they start probing into the extreme details. And you can see that is exactly where we see the change in the industry today. And I'll touch on the blockchain factor that Philip mentioned in a minute here, but when you look at the way the transactions happen today in the data room and the record of information, example, what Russell mentioned on the process data and OSIsoft, the historical trend is absolutely critical data to look at it. And that information collectively put together in the asset performance in the ERP tool. That has come in, either if it's SAP, Oracle, or any vendor you use out there, that has come a long way in terms of evolution of technology to make the information transparent and trustworthy and provide all the digitalized version of the data. So where it went from people actually having block diagrams marked in hand, drawn in blocks in chicken scratches and papers, to actually a digitalized version with the date and timestamp to say, okay, this is what it is. So that actually builds and elevates the trust to a huge extent, and actually builds the record of information that gives that curbs the curiosity nature of the human being. And the interesting part where we actually now are moving towards again in this transaction space is the distributed ledger system that Bob mentioned about the blockchain, where now that's the smart contracts where we are looking at it, where those data get available, accessible in the data room. And if it's actually stored in that area, it's a record of information that's going to be very unlikely to be tampered. So that's the evolution where we are heading towards. We are not there today in that space, but we have significantly evolved, just like our home buying experience, from the days where you used to get the information, print out, you look at data and information, to go into a data room, You collectively have asset information. You collectively have information about the historical trend. You have the information and records of the financial performance of that unit. You look at the process safety events or any individual events that have been recorded over the period of time. And the validation, those are the areas that you see a huge change from decades ago to today. And I'm pretty sure in the next decade there's going to be a drastic change there.
Excellent. Mark, what kind of best practices have you observed in your long career as a CTO? And more importantly, what can other companies can do to make that, such best practice part of a organization culture, so that they become like the fabric of how the organization works?
Well, of course, the best practice is to utilize predictive preventive maintenance rather than reactionary or even time-based maintenance. With digital technology, we should be able to go another step further and utilize machine learning and self-diagnosing instruments and systemic analysis to evaluate risk and try to stay away from operating zones that might endanger equipment. We plan to incorporate risk asset management into our digital twins to help engineers and board operators maximize equipment performance in a safe and reliable manner. Rotating equipment is probably at the top of the list, so we may have a separate program to analyze and advise on performance and health and provide scheduling of maintenance for pumps, turbines, and compressors. We'll start collecting data from day one, and of course that data becomes more useful over time. Thank you.
Great. So, Russell, Mark mentioned about using predictive analytics and using ML. How does such best practices make into the sort of solution you're developing? Could the software actually encourage some best practices? Like if a customer uses a system with these best practices embedded into it, could that change the how the organization operates?
I wish it could. I think it's a really interesting question. When I was thinking about this question earlier, I'm very mindful of, if we went back sort of 10 years ago and we looked at a lot of our digital operations in our refineries and our offshore platforms and our pipeline operations or whatever, I think it was much clearer what was sort of best practice, what was not best practice. And I think what we were trying to do at that time was sort of basically a bit simple, collect data, feed data into systems, tools, monitor what we were doing, use the data to make decisions about our operations. But as we've just heard, the modern vision of operations has got much, much more complicated. And everybody is, including Mark, who just gave a great answer, is talking about we want to be predictive and we want to be able to do this and use machine learning and solve all these problems. And there's loads of vendors that have come into the marketplace and have sold these fantastic visions to all of us. But I think the reality is that although all that stuff is fantastic, I wouldn't say that any operator in any area of oil and gas right now has fully cracked that vision that we're all going after. So as an industry of fast followers, at the moment, there's bits of stuff to follow from lots of places, but there isn't one company or one organization that we could all look to that says, they've done it right, that's exactly what we all want to achieve, let's quickly follow behind them and implement that stuff. So I think to answer your question about, where does good and bad practice come from, I think bad practice comes because we're an industry that follows what everyone else is doing, and we're following what we're used to or what we've seen in other places. And in a lot of cases, what we're trying to do now is got a lot more sophisticated, and we're struggling to know what exactly is the right answer. And should I believe what Russell's telling me about data management, or should I believe what they're telling me about digital twins, or should I believe what they're telling me about predictive analytics? And amongst all that, I think we see pockets of great success and best practice, and we also see pockets of mistakes being made and maybe people going in the wrong direction and then having to rearrange and that kind of stuff. And so to answer your question about can the tools help promote best practice, in terms of the technology I work with, the real-time technology, we're still very much in a world where it's up to the operators and it's a choice. You can use systems like the Pi system as a simple historian, collect data like we have for the last 20 years, collect it and just show it up on graphs and feed it into tools. You can do that, or you can embrace a far more sophisticated data management philosophy, like I was talking about yesterday in my presentation. And it's really up to you. And it's a good question. Do the tools, how much should they be promoting best practice and what we should do? I think what we will see across the industry, though, and I think Adam ran a fantastic event on upstream, a future upstream in December, and we saw a lot of really good conversation amongst the operators and people that were participating that really highlighted to me that the maturity in this space for everyone is increasing, and the understanding of kind of what is best practice and why is best practice important is definitely getting better day by day, and it was really encouraging to see. So I think in many ways the tools themselves can't encourage the best practice, but people's experience with using them and having success in their operations is what brings around over time true best practice and truly what works in our operations. And I think the final thing I'll say on this is what's most important is not what any vendors like OSIsoft or anyone else out there says about what's good or not. What ultimately matters is what the operations teams who are using all these systems and tools, what do they think is best practice? What is really bringing the most value to them? And what are the bits of technology that are really helping them move in the direction that they're all trying to get to?
Right. We all know that digital technologies can, automate and streamline and, add a lot of values in the, overall operational activities. So I want to focus specifically on the collaboration aspect. So, Philip, you're active in this space, and blockchain is usually, considered as a kind of a game changer for when it comes to the collaborations between different systems or even vendors. First of all, do you agree with that sentiment? And if so, I will say, what does the blockchain has over the more established, B2B technologies such as electronic data interchange?
Great question. Yes, blockchain is definitely a game changer in this regard. Electronic data interchange definitely improved how companies transfer information, but the fact of exchanging data in a digital format doesn't really do anything to address the quality of data that's transferred. Two properties of blockchain networks really come together to improve the quality of data within the network. First, the information can't be changed after it's committed, and second, it's clearly visible who or what system published the information. If your name is associated with every commit and that commit can't be changed, it really increases the likelihood you'll double check before publishing. The detailed auditing and tracking that can be done in a blockchain network extends beyond just the information contained in the blocks. It extends to tracking or measuring how often each participant, whether it's a person, company, or a system, has to go back and correct the data. This accounting of every data, this ledger, leads to the ability to actually establish reputation metrics and possibly allow you to fetch a higher price or value on any information from those sources who have proven to be provided good information in the past. This is why blockchain is a game changer in terms of the data. It provides clear visibility into the accuracy of the data. We've never really been able to incentivize participants to publish only high quality data. It's typically been take what they give you and you don't have an insight into how good that system has been.
So you shame to them to improve their processes, huh? All right, Mark, do you have any examples of digital technologies enabling collaboration across the physical operations landscapes? And have you come across any pushbacks against adopting some such technologies by the operations people?
We're not in operation yet, and my past experience doesn't include much use of digital technology for linking separate facilities. However, The design for our new refinery most definitely includes a remote operating center, which will provide a mirror for all plant operations in real time in read-only mode, probably cloud-based. This will allow for sharing of data between facilities, the corporate office, and with engineering partners who will provide troubleshooting and analysis remotely. We don't expect pushback because it will be part of the basic training and part of the plant culture from the start. That's obviously an advantage of a grassroots facility. We imagine there will also be extensive use of handheld devices on site for collection and collaboration on things like operator field data, issuance of work permits, equipment repair records, environmental compliance surveys, and training of all sorts. That's it.
Okay, Russell, what kind of trend do you see when it's come to increasing the collaboration across the systems and solution space in your product portfolio, for example?
Yeah, so I think I see this sort of stuff happening in two areas. So I think in the first example, again, we sell a software platform for managing real-time data, and what we typically see is lots of customers of that technology within an operation doing lots of different kind of things with it, different engineering projects, different initiatives, this kind of stuff. So the first thing that the sort of trend that we see is that there is a appetite within customers to be able to allow engineers to be able to collaborate and bring those ideas, their solutions, bring them all together into a sort of central view of something. So what I mean by that is, let's say we've got a part of our refinery, and let's say I've got one group of engineers who might work on some engineering project or analytic solution using data in our platform. They might build that solution, get it working, test it, prove it, operationalize it, and want to bring it back into the plant for use. And then maybe another team who are doing something very similar but a different kind of engineering problem that they're trying to solve. Ultimately, the customer wants all those solutions brought together so that everybody has access to all the solutions. So we definitely see features and functions coming around in our tools and in the way that we are promoting the management of data to bring those solutions together, to allow different teams to bring their solutions together and collaborate in that way. I think the other side of collaboration that we see a big trend in is obviously around companies, service providers, operators, all working together. I think in that space, data sharing has been happening in the industry for as long as people have been collecting real-time data. But traditionally, a lot of this would be people opening up firewalls in process control networks and giving one company access to some data, or sharing data across a spreadsheet or a USB file. And we're all fully aware of the cyber security risks and potential operational problems with doing that. So we see a lot of features and functionalities being requested by customers and being built into the sort of data technology to facilitate better sharing and collaboration of data, safer mechanisms for doing this, more agile ways, so operators can open up these things, share data, start and stop sharing much more quickly in a safer way. We also see a lot of appetite for cloud technology and cloud collaboration. So there may be, I might be an operator of a downstream plant somewhere, and I may be interested in putting out tenders to a variety of different analytic vendors, and we see a lot of that sort of stuff happening in the industry, where operators want to sort of almost create a tenant of their data up in the cloud, and instead of sending all these different analytic companies copies of their data, they may actually say, look, we're going to create a version of our data that we own in the cloud, and you're all going to be given access to this so that you can all come in and throw your IP and your solutions against that and prove to us that you've got the best solution that we could bring in. So I think it's those kind of technologies and those kinds of trends that we're seeing increasingly that are promoting collaboration and new ways of working.
Excellent. So as a final topic, I want to ask our panelists what do they think about the Industry 4.0 developments on the physical energy landscape. So Karthick, how do you think this is going to influence the digitization and business transformation efforts of the companies?
That's definitely a forefront, a good-looking question ahead if I have the crystal ball in hand. So I'll offer my perspective. So one thing we can say for sure, or I think most of the folks in the panel would agree with me, is oil and gas is not receptive. It's traditionally not been that receptive in adopting new technology. What I mean by that is we have never been in the earlier front in saying, oh, okay, we have a technology, let's look at it. And that's not nobody to blame. It's just mainly because we are an asset intense organization. So it takes huge effort and huge cash flow to actually make that happen. So to answer you, getting back to your question on how the industry 4.0 is looking at in terms of oil and gas industries, we definitely see a disruption in our market. We are not even, I wouldn't even put us, we are looking at a transformation. We are looking at a disruption. What I mean by that is cloud computation is going to completely change the game. We just heard it from folk on the Meridian side where they're looking at remote monitoring, right? Like if you had talking about that 20 years ago about a refinery, people would be saying like, no way, that's not going to happen. So we started in the corrective phase in the maintenance, we moved towards the preventive phase, and then we looked at a predictive on individual assets. Now we are actually looking at system-wide in data from an asset performance and the technology perspective to go from corrective, preventive, and predictive, and folks like OSIsoft are going to play a critical role in that space, where we collect these data from a process, from an asset, and the integration in the ERP is going to have a huge game changer. Then those are the transformation piece, and then we augment that or integrate that with technology like the augmented reality version of how we wanted to do a maintenance. So the kids these days are sitting most of the time at home and playing the video games, right? So they want to be trained in an operating procedure, just like the way they have been trained in their cell phones. So it's going to be not going to be a record of 20 steps. Okay, I got to make a round through versus looking at it the way it could be into a virtual reality. Again, then where people would get trained better, they can actually open and close the valve without affecting the actual operations. And then all these data is looking at, we have we have a computational power that has no ceiling at this point just because of the cloud computation. So putting all these pieces into one platform is going to be the biggest challenge that we are going to come across, and that is going to be the disruption where we actually are looking at a trend in our industry where we are going to see a huge change and shift in how we have actually played the oil and gas industry, especially in the downstream side in the last few decades versus what we are looking ahead in terms of APM.
Great. Mark, what would you keep an eye on with the Industry 4.0 developments as a CTO?
Well, we're really keen on EPC 4.0 for many reasons, not the least of which is efficiency of digital data handover. We plan to have all of the equipment design data that is generated in detailed design captured and populated into the construction project and then into our operations, maintenance, and engineering databases for ongoing activity. The more efficient that data handover is, the quicker and more efficiently the project can move forward without backtracking to collect or format data. There are cost savings in project execution and in plant operations, which include shorter project schedule, lower engineering costs, and earlier plant profits. Again, I'll talk about this a little bit in the upcoming presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Philip, what kind of major innovations we are likely to see in this space, and what will be the best way to prepare for them, in your opinion?
I'm going to talk first about how to best prepare for them. I think the best preparation any company can make for innovation is not to become too tied to one specific business model or production model. Inertia and momentum around how things have always been done is the number one biggest trap companies fall into, which can lead them to decline. There needs to be constant innovation and investment in innovation, both in time and money, towards thinking about new developments and how to adapt. This is tough, especially in a cost-cutting environment, but I think the key is finding individuals or finding groups who are naturally innovative and pushing the envelope and encouraging them to keep doing so. I think in terms of specific technology, the blockchain adoption and interest will continue to increase. And one of the areas I'm excited about is related to decarbonization. I've seen some information from oil majors that using blockchain to monitor and track low carbon electricity generation. There's also been some work around tracking the carbon footprint of each barrel of oil using a distributed ledger in order to certify it as a low carbon. Singapore is taxing natural gas on the amount of carbon that each shipment of natural gas emitted. So the tracking and monitoring is going to be very important, and I think blockchain will play a big part of this. Also, as IoT devices continue to come to the market, especially related to inexpensive sensors which simply bolt on equipment and measure vibration and temperature, we'll see a big jump in the predictive capabilities of machine learning and AI models. I'm excited about the variety of devices that bolt onto machinery that didn't get instrumented due to the cost during the construction phase. Some of this equipment is old, others is new. Sometimes it's too small to think it matters much, but we're going to see better models as the more data comes in from those machinery and the predictive capabilities get better. Microsoft has already pre-trained models available for things like financial fraud detection. I think we'll begin to see pre-trained models from the technology companies as well as companies like Spark Cognition. They're doing some very interesting things in terms of how to quickly get that information and develop those models for use by industry.
Excellent. Russell, so how do these developments influence the evolution of your product portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, and all the time, every week. OSIsoft has always been a company that has prided itself by being very close to our customers, our operational users, and we produce a piece of technology that sits right in the middle of a lot of these Industry 4.0 initiatives or visions. So listening to the fantastic visions that people like Mark have and Karthick, and listening to the technology trends, which I totally agree with that Philip is talking about. We are looking at all this stuff all the time. And, at the core of what we do is produce a platform that helps people manage their operational data. And on whatever aspect of Industry 4.0 we're looking at, the common theme across all of them is that they're all going to require, as good as we can get management of data. So yeah, we're always looking at the trends. We're spending a lot of time. My role is to spend every day talking to customers, listening to what they're trying to do, helping them understand what are the opportunities. We have lots of conversations between us and our product team, providing that insight. Our product guys are very good at being part of industry groups, industry associations, technology steering groups, understanding where the general trends in the industry are going, and looking at how that we can constantly be adapting the pie suite of tools to be able to support that. And so whether that is as in recent years a move out to the edge as well as a move into the cloud, or whether it's evolution of core functionality within the center of our product, it's the heart of what we do is to support customers and support operations. And so we have to listen to what they want to do. We have to look at the systems and the tools that they're trying to connect. And we need to understand the role that, our technology can play to help, accelerate that. So kind of like what I was talking about yesterday, if we look at things like digital twin that people are very interested in, we really need to understand about the role that we can play and our tools can play to making things like digital twins, successful. And if we can build those capabilities into the tools and we can help customers on the journey around using that kind of stuff, then I think we've, at the end of it, done a good job. So it's a huge part of what we do. We have, I think, a team of almost 300 or 400 people in California who pretty much constantly develop the tool to keep in alignment with these trends and support, what the industry wants to do. Because as we all know, it moves very quickly.
Excellent. With that, I think we kind of come to the end. I would like to thank our panelists for their valuable insights. I hope that their comments and insights have been useful to our audience. I will hand over to Mark to continue with his presentations. Thank you.